It's me, the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. In this video, I'm going to talk about the ego. Now, I have never studied psychology save for one little course in 9th grade. Doesn't count much. And I don't know Freud, I don't know Jung, all the psychoanalysts and all the philosophers and what they said about the self. I'm not even going to bring too much of the biblical, into it, or maybe I will, who knows. This is going to be a mini kind of rant. Mini because it's me, not because of the time. Who knows how long it's going to be? But here it is. I'm live talking about the ego. So what is it? What is it about us that's just, I want it, I want it, I want it, gimme, 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 mine, 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 now, now, now. So the ego is what keeps us motivated in a lot of ways. We are motivated at the root by pleasure. In any way, shape, or form you want to attribute to it, that is what we seek ultimately. We seek pleasure. Pleasure has been associated with the element of water, if I'm not mistaken, which takes the shape of whatever it is that it's contained in, which comes down from on high, from the heavens into the earth, and soaks, it soaks itself into the earth, soaks it up, and it yields and bears fruit and vegetation and life, right? That whole thing is about pleasure, is about the ego. That's what it's akin to, I suppose. So there is a lot of benefit to this ego. It keeps us driven and motivated. On the other hand, in the Talmud, it says a person does not leave this world with even half of his desires fulfilled and actually attained. So what is it exactly? There's also the very famous midrash, right? The oral teaching, which is when the Lord said, and he saw that at the end of the creation story of the first one, the first creation story, and it says, and the Lord saw everything that he had created, and it was very good. Whereas in the other ones, it says, and he saw that it was good. So it was good is the good inclination. Very good, say our sages, is the negative, the evil inclination, the ego. So what is it about the ego that can pull us down to the depths of our own personal hells on the one hand and motivate us and drive us to better things on the other hand? It's a push and pull kind of thing. It's a kind of weird dichotomy of sorts because it's all inside of us. Again, I don't know psychoanalysis or psychology, so I'm not going to try and analyze it or put forth any kind of theory or speculation that way. I'm just going to talk about myself. I know that it's my inability to get what I want that sometimes drives me to better ways to get at what I want. It's a little difficult to explain, and I don't know if that came out right, but my ego is something that I'm very, very much aware of because of, well, who I am, the kind of life that I've chosen. It's not to say that I'm more aware than others. I'm not some enlightened, I don't know what, but I know me. I do. To a great degree, I think I know me. There are always more layers to uncover, always more traumas to, revisit and whatever, and happy memories as well. But I know who I am. After 36 years in this world, I know a thing or two about who I am and about what it is that I really, truly want. I mean, who's to say? In so many cases, you get what you want, and then you find out that you wanted something else all along. I'm a screenwriter by trade, and one of the basics of drama is want versus need. You got to figure out your character's wants and needs in order to play with them, in order to have an interesting drama. That happens on many levels, but you got to figure out your wants and your needs. With the most interesting characters, they are set in opposition, which is what causes part, at least, of the drama. So it's a little difficult to explain. And I'm not going to try and open it all up now, but I did want to talk about the ego because right now, at this very moment, I'm in a kind of crossroads with a job-related thing. And I'm thinking of, I'm weighing different options and variables here and there. Again, I won't give all the details now because I haven't made up my mind yet all the way. I'm trying to find a way to make a few things work at the same time. The question is, to what end? And this is why I wanted to make this video. To what end? What is the goal? So, I mean, the goal, as far as I'm concerned, with these videos and this series, this kind of recorded manifesto on the Nazarite vow, the way I perceive it, is because what I want to do is establish a virtual or physical nomadic monastery. As I've mentioned in previous videos, the Hebrew Nazarites never congregated, really, at least not, it's not in recorded history that they have congregated. The Nazarites were always few and far between, pretty much. Certainly the ones who did it for life. But Nazarites in general are few and far between now, and they were probably few and far between, way back when. Unlike different religious groups and sects and like prophets, they didn't have groups. They didn't congregate because it's a personal vow. They didn't congregate, and so what I want to do is I want to start gathering Nazarites together from the few that I've been in touch with over the last few months and going back a few years. I can see that each Nazarite that I encounter has a different way of looking at the vow, or a different way of, let's say, executing the vow, a different way of answering the call to the Nazarite vow. And it's very interesting to me. So this is partly why I'm doing this. But before I get to do that, and as I've mentioned before, one of my personal goals is to attain prophecy. I am certainly not on that level quite yet. Certainly not when I'm in a foreign land, right, in the Netherlands. I think when I get to Israel, or when I return to Israel, it would be more feasible. But, God will pour his spirit on anyone, anytime, anywhere. It's all according to the deeds of the individual. I know that for sure. I've been told that by people who are a lot more, well, sophisticated spiritually, let's say, than I. It comes down to the ego. What is it that drives me? What is it that I'm willing to sacrifice for? Why do I do what I do? It all starts and stops with the ego, because the ego is a big part of who I am, because I am still in a physical body with a human psyche. The human psyche is so paradoxical and so layered, and there are so many things all thrown in at once. Again, I wouldn't presume to be able to break it down for you and all that technically, certainly not medically or in any other capacity, but I know me. And you, whoever is watching this, in part at least, know you. You know how complicated you are. You know how messed up you are. You know how wrong and right you are about certain things. You know what you want, even if you won't admit it to yourself. You know what you don't want. As soon as you start asking yourself the larger, more fundamental questions and really wanting to get the answers, these are things that will come to you so easily, so very easily, more often than not. And the ego plays a big part here. We're in a living flesh and blood vessel. And this causes a great, I don't know if it's a gap, a dissonance, a chasm of existence, however you want to call it. There's something there that just, it's inclined, it's like predisposed to become a mess. But I think that the best thing about the ego is that once you set your mind to something positive, and once you are able to harness that ego and use it for good, that's the game changer in a big way. A lot of different faiths and practices and ways of life, I think, certainly ones which are more spiritual in nature, I think some of them, Satanism excluded, and the occult and things like that, because I don't know enough about that, but a lot of other ways of life are all about not suppressing or eradicating, but the idea of contending with the ego to such a degree that you kind of embrace it, and in doing so, completely take it out of the equation, take it out of the picture, out of the frame. Now, I don't think that's the case with the Hebrew faith. The ego is something that we are meant to contend with and use positively. I think there will always be something that even the most righteous individual does wrong. This is something that has been echoed in Scripture, in the Old Testament, probably in the New Testament as well. Though, like I said, I'm not versed enough in the New Testament, but we all sin. We all miss the mark. We all do things that we personally consider reprehensible, or at the very least morally objectionable, on some level. So it's impossible to reach purity and ritual cleanliness all the time. Even in the natural circle of life, for any normal, ordinary human being, there will be a time when you are ritually impure. That's not a bad thing. It only means that temporarily you are in some ways spiritually or physically inadequate. This, by the way, and this is, I think, what I'll end this with, that's the difference between ritual purity, what's called tahara, and holiness. There's purity and ritual impurity, which are two sides of the same token, right? And then there's holiness, which is kind of above, for lack of a better term. Holiness is something which is not exactly part of this world, whereas ritual, or at least in some ways, it's not part of this world. It is manifested in this world, but it's not originally a part of this world, the physical, material, external, world. Whereas ritual impurity, ritual cleanliness, or lack thereof, is directly related to this world. Even if you look at Scripture, there are times, so many times, when one can be holy, right? Separated, segregated, consecrated. This is what holy actually means. That's the definition. And still be ritually impure and unable to perform certain acts, do certain deeds, be in certain places physically. This does not negate a person's holiness. To be holy is to be separated, segregated, consecrated. And this is something that you can do even if you are ritually impure. So by that same token, you can have an ego. You can want things for yourself. You can want fame and fortune and riches and glory. To what end? That's the big thing. To what end? I think that's what it comes down to, or in a big way, it's what it comes down to, because you're not going to get rid of your ego working the way you work with the Hebrew faith. The Hebrew faith, as we live it, is partly predicated on the ego. That's why we have commandments which are do's and don'ts. For that reason, we're not all perfect. We'll never be perfect. We'll never be perfect, period. But you can still be holy. And what is it to be holy? This is something which God asks us, mankind, but certainly the children of Israel, in the Scripture, directly in the Bible. Be holy, for I am holy. That, in different variants, occurs a few times in the text, in the 5 books of Moses. Be holy, be separated, be segregated, be consecrated, for I am holy. We are supposed to mirror the divine. We are supposed to use the divine image that we are created in, and take that however you want, in order to mirror the divine in the most positive way, right? The divine, as it's manifested and revealed in the Scripture, has seemingly good and bad qualities, right? God gets wrathful and vengeful and angry, and kills a bunch of people, all that. But talking about not the way humans perceive it, but the way that, let's say, God perceives it. Be holy because I am holy. God is not pure or impure. That belongs to us. That's in this world. So use the ego. Take advantage of the fact that you seek pleasure. Take the time to learn about yourself and about the world and understand which is the pleasure that you actually want, which is the pleasure that you think you want but will eventually find out you don't need, and which is the pleasure that you need and you want and you should go for. Use the ego because it's an amazing, amazing tool if it's harnessed properly. You probably won't be able to use all of it properly all the time. Fine. Do what you can. A quote that I recently came across, which I probably mentioned in a previous video, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. That's John Denwood. I think I'm John Wooden, Denwood, something like that. I think I'll end with that now. Let's be egocentric. Let's be, let's obsess about ourselves. Let's think about ourselves, but let's do it in a way which yields positive results, not just for us, but for everyone else involved. Let's work on ourselves and on our ego, not just to purify it from all the different things which don't belong there, but to understand that there's a kind of holiness to the ego when used properly. Let's have a good one. God bless.